Brought to you by BedroomBattlefields.com. This is the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast.
Let's talk about aesthetic, because I really did enjoy a while ago, and I'm sorry we didn't capture at the time. But when you started to unpack your gnome team for Blood Bowl, and you're having your experiences with your gnome team,
Having a meltdown.
Yeah, you seem to have made peace with that now, the way.
Yeah. And that was maybe the genesis of this. To be honest, so just to give the listener a bit of background if they're not aware already, I don't buy new Games Workshop stuff, modern Games Workshop stuff. It just doesn't appeal to me aesthetically, and I don't play any of their games until very recently when I got Blood Bowl, the new Blood Bowl, and bought a team for it, the Gnomes team.
Why did you? Why did you buy it?
Why did I buy Blood Bowl?
Yeah.
I just took a real notion to have a self-contained board game.
Okay.
And I liked it when I was young, and I've heard that not a lot has changed about it. So I thought it would be a good game going into next winter. So bought a team for it. And to be honest, the aesthetics, I don't mind them now that they're all built and painted. But I mean, this is more a hobby question rather than aesthetics, I think. But building them was just utterly miserable. It was a terrible experience. Like the way that these are designed to be built are just so fiddly, and I don't really understand what the thought process is. And as for the aesthetic itself, it's fine. It's just it's not really in line with like the types of miniatures that I'm typically attracted to, is a strong word, but you know what I mean, like the type of stuff that I like to collect and paint. So
it's interesting that there's stuff to unpick there. Like, I mean, I like Blood Bowl too. Like, I have not the set that you got, like the new edition, second edition. Does that kind of make sense? You got one with the more fancier orcs and the more fancier humans, right? So there's like a second edition of the new edition, which is like got fancier models in it. And I looked at that and I was like, the models seem too fiddly. They seem like there's too much stuff that's going to snap off. So I got like the first edition of the new edition. And I quite like that, the models in that one, because the models are still quite robust, but interesting. It's interesting you talk about that, about the design principles. Like, so you got like a small gnome. So how many pieces did each small gnome come in typically?
It could have been, I mean, it was a while ago now, and I've deleted it from my memory, but you could have been talking 8 or 9 pieces for this very small miniature. And there was only one. I was just going to say there was only one way really to build it, with the exception of like this face or that face. Like, it was the same pose and that. So I do not understand the thought process behind it.
Well, it's different in it. That's the thing. The thing when we talk about aesthetic, when we talk about hobby, it's neither better nor worse. It's just different. So the kind of the roadblocks that you bumped into about them being really fiddly, someone else might have thought, oh, this is amazing because it's a little bit like a Lego puzzle, or it's a little bit like a jigsaw, or, you know, some people might really like that fidelity, that little motor movements and motor skills that you need to specifically put this place in one part. Like, some people might like that. Does that kind of make sense? But why do you think they do that? What do you think the design principle is to make these small fiddly parts? Like, what do you think they're trying to do?
I honestly have no answer to that. I've thought about it. Like, why are they doing this? I honestly don't know. There obviously has to be a reason for it. I think
it helps with the design to make certain features more pronounced. Does that make sense? So you might have like, say, if you take like a head, and it might just have, if you think about the beard and the nose, and maybe there's a tongue sticking out. So the first piece might have the nose and then a big gap and then the tongue sticking out. And then you put the beard over the top, and so the mouth hole of the beard goes over the tongue. So it now allows that tongue to be more pronounced, and the sculpt of the tongue enables it to be more, visible, more pronounced, and kind of separated from it. So I think in terms of making that individual model like more vivid, and more pronounced certain parts of it, I think in terms of that design, I think it's making the more fiddly parts is really good. But in terms of the menopause, the monopose nature. I don't enjoy the monopose at all, really, because if I got a gnome team and you got a gnome team, there's no difference, right? My gnomes will look exactly the same as your gnomes. And for me personally, like I said before, it's neither better nor worse, but I don't enjoy the monopose nature of the way things have gone, because I want my gnome team to be my gnome team. And I think with all the little bits and the 8 or 9 different bits for one little gnome, because we're not talking about a giant guy here, we're talking about just a gnome. How high would you say they are? Maybe 6 centimeters high, maybe?
So I'm looking over, like I've got a lot of like traditional 28mm stuff, and they're smaller than your standard human in 28mm. So yes, it's a small miniature. Yeah.
So it's like with all those individual component parts, it makes it significantly harder to kit bash. And kit bash is something that a lot of people like to do, right? And I totally get that, because you're using this as a base, using that model as a base, and you're creating your own gnome team. So I think in terms of just the designing of that individual monopose miniature, that those design principles really are great. Once you get the hang of building those little fiddly models, it makes for a better individual model. But I don't think it doesn't make for a better individual model, because it's just a standard thing. And I don't know, I wouldn't say I think they're amazingly designed for what they are. And I think people that design them work really, really hard, and I think they do an excellent job. But I'm not the biggest fan of the over-engineered individual monopose miniature. That doesn't really do much for me. And I don't know. It's a strange one, isn't it? It seems to, I don't know. Over-engineered sounds bad, doesn't it? But I don't know.
No, I mean, I think if I was a good painter, like I'm a functional get it done painter, I enjoy it, and I get it done pretty quickly. But if I was a really good painter, like bordering on artist level, I would want less detailed miniatures, because I would want more room to create things myself with a brush, rather than have like every single detail's already accounted for. And of course you're painting the details, but you're kind of backed into a corner there, and like you're saying, it's just going to look the same as somebody else's, even with a different paint job. So I would want less detail, because then I would feel that I could do more with the brush. But again, I wouldn't have to worry about that.
I really like people that like sculpt their own stuff with green stuff. So if you take some like a World War II tank, for example, is they'll get like a World War II tank, but then they'll sculpt tarps and different stowage items like jerry cans or stuff that they've looted, or like a case of wine, like a crate of wine or beer, like a deck chair or like a rocking chair, and they'll sculpt this stuff and attach it to the tank, and it makes that model their own, and it makes their own little story. I really like that. I really like those things. And I just think that when everything's kind of done for you, because even if you take like a Space Marine, it's getting to the point where all of the grenades or pouches and all that stuff is pre-sculpted onto the miniature. So there's just no room for your own individual creativity. You can still probably do it, but it's significantly harder to do that individual kind of, making them your own is very, very difficult to do. And I think for me personally, like I said, keep on going back to this because it's really important, is that that's not for me. It's neither better nor worse, but I just don't find it's for me. Like even from when I first started getting involved in the hobby, there was a lot of individual changes that you could make to a squad of Space Marines, because you'd get a whole bunch of stuff that you could put onto them. You could put the pouches, you could put the grenades, you could put like the purity seals, which is like the kind of wax seal with a bit of paper coming off. Right, you get a whole bunch of that on the sprue that you could make it your own through those things. But I think even now, like the ones that I've seen recently, and I've not bought one for a long, long time, but I think even that's reduced to the point where it's just like, no, if you buy a box of 10, then they all look like this pretty much, apart from a few potential weapons options.
Yeah, and what makes me laugh about this whole thing as well is like if say I was out with my wife and we somehow stumbled across a Games Workshop, like a Time Warp Games Workshop from like 95, with like the display case and the miniature, the display case and the window were the miniatures from 1995. And I'd be at that window, I'd be like, oh, look at that, that's amazing. And like if we found, you know, a Games Workshop today and I looked in the window, I'd find myself saying, I don't really like that, don't like the look of that. And, you know, to her, it's just exactly, they're just the same little toys. But I guess that's just like any hobby. Like a golfer will pick up two clubs that are ostensibly the same to me and be like, oh, this is a shocker, whereas this is like the best club you could have.
Yeah, this wood isn't wood. This wood is not made out of wood. Wood should be made of wood. Yeah, and that's important. That's really, really important to note, is that if you enjoy it, and you dig it or whatever, that's what makes a hobby amazing. Like I'd love to hear somebody who talks about the thing, you know, the GNOME team, that have just love the GNOME team. I'd love to hear the reasons and the thoughts of why they think that GNOME team is amazing, because there's no doubt people do think it's amazing, and there's no doubt that people have made a really, really great job of painting them. And then maybe there is people around that have found ways to change them and adapt them and, you know, kit bash them or modify them in some way. Like that's the thing. And it's just that you at that moment in time didn't particularly enjoy it. Like one of the things for me that I really valued when I started to get into building GW models was the plastic cement that I used. Is that I think it's Revell. They do this Revell do this cement, which is like a kind of blue plastic container with like a yellow lid, but it's got like a long kind of metal, very, very small metal tube, like a proboscis, right? And then that really helps to really target the plastic cement where it needs to go. So you could just put like a little dot of plastic cement on. Whereas before I had like a kind of a glass bottle with like a screw top lid, and then attached to the screw top lid was a brush to apply the polystyrene cement, right? And that was just too unwieldy. It was just too easy to put too much polystyrene plastic cement onto the model, and then it all started getting all rough. So that really helped. Like having the right tools and having the right, you know, experience to kind of put those little fiddly bits together. You know, that's an art, that's a hobby in itself, really. That kind of makes sense. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm all about making stuff your own. So when I see the kind of these monoposed units, it doesn't really do much for me, to be honest, because I like to try and make them different or unique or make them my own, which is, I think that's really important. Like the creativity that you bring to your projects is that's interesting for me. Like knowing what people do, how people change it, what sort of different craft skills and hobby skills they use to adapt them is something that I find interesting. I wouldn't find it interesting to go to like a Blood Bowl tournament and see 5 different GNOME teams and see the only difference is the color of the hat and the beard. I don't really get much from that, I don't think.
On the build front as well, I think to an extent it is a Blood Bowl problem, because when I bought Blood Bowl, like I chipped in with my brother-in-law and his friend. So one of them took the orc team and one of them took the human team, and they're both like pretty regular hobbyists in terms of like 40k and that, like modern, the super modern stuff. So they buy and build a lot of that and paint a lot of it. And both of them said with their respective Blood Bowl teams that they were a nightmare. So I think for some weird reason it seems to be a Blood Bowl problem with the assembly.
No, I think it's across GW from my experience. You know, having put together Age of Sigmar models, put together 40k models recently, like, you know, semi recently. It's across the company, to be honest. You know, but it's hard to argue with what they do, because you know they keep on making hundreds of millions of pounds worth of profit, right? So I think we're maybe the exception to the norm as opposed to the norm. Probably would say.
What about like turning it on its head? If we think about like gamers like myself, hobbyists like myself, and folks, you know, even older, if that's imaginable, but like, you know, this appeal of the big lump of metal, like the single lump of metal, you know, everything's carved into that, and therefore the pose is quite limited, but also, you know, people will say words like characterful, and you know, so I wonder what is in that. Is that pure nostalgia, or is there something deeper going on there?
think a lot of it is just, you say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? And if it's like 80s music would be a good example. I still really enjoy 80s music, and I think it's really, really good. And that's probably because of the time that I was getting into music and the nostalgia that some of those songs kind of bring. You know, I was on holiday in Prestatyn when that was on or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just, so I think a lot of it is just when you enter the hobby and the sort of stuff that you really enjoy when you enter the hobby. Some people swear by metal, right?
Yeah.
Right? Are you a metal model guy?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really looked into the nuances or understood the nuances. To me, metal's metal, but yeah, metal is a good blanket term for what I tend to own.
Yeah. And so some people swear, but I don't really. Even the newer metal models from like Corvus Belli, which is the Corvus Belli make, what's a really crunchy skirmish rule set? I can't remember it. It's off the top of my head. Sorry, I'm in holiday mode. My brain's gone to mush. But there's a kind of like a futuristic skirmish game by Corvus Belli, and Corvus Belli are one of the kind of leaders in terms of still producing metal minis, and are really smooth and are really nice and are really characterful. But sometimes, some reason, there's like metal models that never done it for me. But some people swear by them, and that's totally fine. Some people really swear by resin minis. Some people like the combination between metal and plastic, and I think I remember somebody showing me the Space Marine set that they got, where it was like a kind of plastic body, a metal body with like plastic appendages that you could kind of put on.
The backpack and that, it was plastic.
Yeah. So I think it's just individual taste, but I think the fact that the thing still exists is pretty cool. Like, some people are really purists in terms of, you know, has to be metal, it has to be traditionally made, all that kind of stuff. But it's just, I don't know, like, and that's the thing. There's no right or wrong, right? There's no set way of doing things, and there's no reason for us to quantify or define what's right or wrong. It's just for individual. I think metal tends to be cheaper from what I've seen, right? That might be a key factor.
Yeah, that old, like, what's the way around? Like, it's cheaper to make the metal, but it's more expensive to set up to make the plastic, but then it's cheaper to make the plastic going forward. It's that kind of thing.
Well, generally speaking, the tooling of the mold for plastic is significantly more, but it lasts a lot longer. Yeah. Whereas the metal molds, I've been very fortunate to have seen it happen and been involved in it and mess around with it a little bit. But yeah, the molds for metal and resins, they don't have the same shelf life. They deteriorate quicker, and you have to then make it again. But it's interesting. But I'd be interested to know. Again, I've just said we can't really quantify it and can't really define it. But I'd like to know why people swear by metal and stuff. Because you remember that, I think you had one. Did you have one recently? Like the Nurgle kind of big Nurgle guy. It was made out of metal. And someone showed me a dreadnought, like a Space Marine dreadnought, a while ago. That was like pretty much all metal. It's heavy. It's probably like about 300, 400 grams worth of just pewter or metal or white metal.
To be honest, like, I honestly don't care what they're made of. It's the aesthetics for me, and it just so happens that the aesthetics I like tend to be made in metal. If you could get them in plastic, it wouldn't bother me in the slightest. There is a satisfaction of the weight of them, I think, especially when you're gaming, although that comes with the trade-off that, like, if you even like knock the miniature a tiny little bit, roll a dice against it, you get a big chip on it. So what I tend to do with I was just going to say, what I tend to do with the plastic stuff, including my gnomes, is just glue like 2 pences underneath. So raid the kids' piggy bank, take all their inheritance money and just glue them to the bottom of the bases, and that gives them a bit more weight. But
I do that with my Flames of War stuff. So Flames of War is like 15 millimeter World War II. So I do that with my tanks, my Flames of War tanks. I'll put put some weights inside the hull of the tank, so it's got a bit more heft. But yeah, like that's a key thing for me with metal, is that how bendy it is. You know, if we've got a sword, it's quite bendy, and then you get to be super crazy fucking careful trying to straighten it back out. And then also, the chips and stuff like that, I don't really enjoy that. That's the problem that I've never really had with plastic at all, is that I never really varnish stuff, to be honest. Never really felt the need to. I've kind of had my eyes on it, and I've got some matte varnish, got some satin varnish, but I've never really had the need to use it when I'm painting plastic minis and things like that. But I think maybe like you talk about the nostalgia. I don't know if that comes from the material that's being used or whether it comes from just the aesthetic of the sculpt. And I think there's a big difference between like traditionally sculpted and then maybe 3D or electronically kind of sculpted. I think that's a difference with aesthetic. But then there's also like just the idea of like if you take like an orc, and GW didn't create orcs. They were maybe one of the first companies to kind of personify them in a mini form. But it seemed to be like the fantasy setting and even sci-fi settings were a little bit more tongue in cheek and a little bit more whimsical. Whereas now it seems to be a lot more serious, right? It's a lot more, you know, I don't know, like it seemed to be like that idea of an orc was quite comical. A goblin was quite comical. It still exists in some settings. You think like a nurgling is still quite comical, but it seems to be like it takes itself a lot more seriously now, which I tend to not like that as much. I tend to more prefer it's not truly silly or comical, is it? But it's definitely got more of those areas, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And something you're saying there just made me think as well, like when we think about the materials miniatures are made, but I think also there's a factor of the packaging. Again, like harking back to, my young days going into a Games Workshop, and I had this same experience at Bring Out Your Lead last summer going into the Foundry shop with the traditional blister pack with, it's just big lumps of metal in there. You could see the figures, but crucially, you don't see them painted. It's not looking at box art, but you can see, maybe the minis in 2 or 3 different bits at most. But you're looking at that, and I think your brain, and again, this might just be nostalgia talking, but your brain is looking at that just unpainted bit of metal or lead and thinking what you're going to do with it. Whereas if you walk into Games Workshop now, it's a lovely, beautiful box. You don't even see the sprues in there. You obviously have to build them all, and you've got this box art on the front, and it's almost serving you up like here's what you're getting. Whereas when you're looking in the blister packs, I think it's more of a here's what I'm going to create with this. I don't know, it feels more involved, but again, that could just be an old man rambling about how things were better in the olden days.
When I were a lad. But no, but there's good and bad bits to that. I remember when I was making my first Space Marine army, like when I first started the hobby, I actually quite appreciated the box art, and I quite appreciated YouTube, and I quite appreciated following that because it kind of gave you stepping stones to. I think I got better quicker because of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But now, having seen both sides of the coin, I very much prefer like with my podcast. I mean, I specifically underlining and putting it in bold, like mine. You're very different, and that's awesome. I don't want to listen to anybody else. I want to make my own way. I want to forge my own path, even if that path is terrible compared to other people. I want to do that myself because that in itself is what makes it interesting to me. So I'm with you with the blister pack is that I don't want to see box art. I don't want to see any of that. I want to make my own relationship with it. Even if I make some very basic errors that somebody goes, oh, actually, and I noticed this a couple of weeks ago, actually, is that I was painting a miniature and he had trousers on and then he had boots. And then there was a bit at the top of his boot where I was like, I don't know if that's his trouser going over the boot or whether that's like a turn back on his boots. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So I painted it as a turn back on his boot. So his boots went higher, but then he'd folded them down. And then I just kind of shared it on a Reddit that I'm part of. And someone was like, oh, no, you've painted it wrong. That's not boot. That's trouser that goes over boot. And it's like, I was like, okay, great. If that's what you see it as, awesome. But I think it's boot, so it's boot. Right? Does that kind of make sense? And I like having that.
You'll be getting my boot up your arse in a minute, son. That's how you finished it.
But I like making my own relationship with stuff. That's what's fun. Like and if you think about writing an essay, like once you've written the essay's worthless. What has value is the thought, the intent, the process, and the journey that you go through whilst writing it. And it's kind of I kind of like see that the same with minis that I paint and games that I play. is that once I've finished the mini, it's not worthless because obviously I'm going to use it for a game and I'm going to obviously appreciate it and that it's done. But the process of deciding what colors to use, the process of deciding like what is that belt? Is that still boot? All that stuff that's where the value lies for me. And so now, having followed box art and having tried to get the minis as close to box art as possible, I appreciate that because I think it helped me to learn. It helped me to kind of develop my craft. But also now, having seen both sides of the coin, I steer away from that because it's like I want to find my own way. That's like extra value, extra hidden value in the hobby, where it's like making my own relationship with this. Like if you think about like a Gretchen, right? You remember that the second edition of 40K that was the first
he's
box
big
set?
gun.
You got 40 of those same guys. It's like what color is the casing on his weapon? And are you going to have the same color casing for all of them, or are you going to do different color cases for each squad or something like that? That thought is something that I really value, and just to dismiss that and follow box art, for me, I'm not really into that so much. But I totally get why people would appreciate that because I've seen that side of the hobby too.
Mm-hmm. I did keep the box for the gnomes, not to copy it per se, but just because I got to certain bits on the miniature and I was like, what is this bit? Like, I don't really know what this is supposed to be. So it helped a bit just looking at the photos for figuring out what was going on.
But it's just going back to the GW thing again, not trying to be edgy or hating. I think they're amazing. I think they're amazing. But the ultimate thing for me is it costs more than I want to pay. That's what it comes down to fundamentally. I think I've talked to you about this before. It was when the Dungeon Bowl came out. So the version of Blood Bowl, which is based underground in a dungeon. So they're playing the same game, but they're playing it inside underground. That whenever that came out, whatever year that was, and however much it cost, that's when GW went out of casual purchase for me. And so I literally have not bought anything or hardly anything since that got released because it's just more than I'm willing to pay for some plastic dudes now, which is a shame because sometimes you see some models and you think, wow, they look really, really good. There was some Khorne guys, like some sci-fi sort of 40K Khorne guys, and they looked really good. But it's all the little pebbles that started falling down the mountain to cause an avalanche where I'm not going to interact with it because it's the monopose. It's the fiddly putting it together. I'm not really the biggest fan of the rule set, and I'm having to pay a premium for that, which, is a shame, I guess. But there's so many other kind of minis around and companies around that have got a better overall balance, right? You say when you're making a tank, people that make tanks, right? They talk about speed, you talk about survivability, and you talk about lethality. So speed, lethality, survivability, and reliability. Like those are the kind of key design principles for making a tank. And if you kind of think about all those things combined with GW, it's like, is it cheap? No, which is not necessarily a problem. Am I able to kind of create something cool with it? No. Is it a really good miniature when you put it together? Yeah, it generally is, but there's just not enough boxes that are ticked to make me want to go in that direction. I think there's many more different companies around that, in my opinion, they get more of that balance between those kind of design principles like the survivability, the lethality, etc., etc.
Any more to say on this, or do you think we've solved it?
I think the overriding thing is that the fact that we can talk about that for a period of time, and that some people will be sitting there going, "What a bunch of shite! That's completely wrong." That's what makes
all my reviews.
Yeah, that's what makes it amazing. Does that kind of make sense? It's like that the hobby is so diverse that you could easily find lots of people that would talk to you about gnomes and talk about why they fucking love them so much, and that's why I really enjoy the hobby. And I think more of us should be like, because I think that we're quite open-minded and we're talking about something that we don't particularly like or we don't particularly enjoy. But I think you could find an equal or more amount of people that would be like, no, you're wrong. And I love that. The gnomes are amazing because of this. The gnomes are amazing because of that. I like listening to those people. And the fact that you can have totally opposing views on a certain thing, hopefully coexist and appreciate. That's what's amazing. So that's the thing with aesthetic. It's like one of the first things I said was beauty is in the eye of the beholder. it's very much that the fact that we can just have this chat, and the fact that they do exist. We are neither right nor wrong. We just have an opinion. And I think the more different opinions that people can have is the better. It's amazing.
Our question of the month for August 2025 is, what's got your hobby juices flowing right now? What are you excited about? What are you painting, playing, or planning for? There's nothing more motivating than hearing another hobbyist's enthusiasm, so please fill us in over at bedroombattlefields.com/voicemail, and I need them in by Friday the 29th of August. That's bedroombattlefields.com/voicemail, and now back to the show.
So, have you actually played Blood Bowl yet?
Only solo to try and figure out the rules. So the plan is once we get into the sort of darker nights, because we're actually getting some decent light weather here at the moment, but heading into the autumn and winter, I'm hopeful that my wife might entertain me for a game or two. And like I said, my brother-in-law and his pal have a team as well. So if they are getting those painted up, then I will have opponents. I like the sound of the sevens, so you could play it. You probably know this already, but you could play 7-a-side, so it's smaller pitch and just seems to be quicker, more streamlined. That's not to say I don't want to try 11s, but I'm also conscious of time, and I've heard that like a game of Blood Bowl could go on for quite a few hours. So sevens might just suit me better. Like when you played it back in the day, were you full 11s or 7s or what?
Yeah, I still play it regularly. Like I still have it. Yeah, it's good. I never really found that it takes a crazy amount of time, to be honest.
Really?
But that might just be the games that I've played. But it's really good. I like it. And some people talk about, I think we've talked about this, about how we presume that games that are released now are better, more evolved, more polished. I don't necessarily think that's always the case. I think a good game is a good game is a good game, right? Does that kind of make sense? And so I think Blood Bowl is just a really good game. What I like about it is how you have to plan out your turn, because whenever you fail something, that's your turn over, right? So if we've got someone that's completely doesn't know about Blood Bowl at all, it's like a combination of different sports, really. There's American football in there, there's rugby in there, there's football in there for sure. And so you have like a kind of offensive and a defensive line where, you've got players which are opposing each other directly. And if you want to try and knock that person down, you have to make a certain roll. And if you fail that, your turn is over. And so you've really got to think about what activation. So say if it's my turn, I will do an activation. And if I pass that, I'll get to do another one. And if I pass that, I'll get to do another one. Until either all my players have been activated, or much more likely I fail one. So if I got like a little human guy, an offensive line guy, and he wants to kind of get past an orc guy so that he can make a run to receive a pass later on, every individual's got like a kind of an area of kind of awareness. So if I try and run past you, if I go within one square of you, you'll have an opportunity to maybe grab me and drag me down. So what you might want to do is you might have to have one of your offensive linemen kind of grapple with an orc guy, knock that orc guy down, so that then your runner can just run past him without getting grabbed by the ankle as he goes by. So you might think, okay, so action one, offensive lineman punches the orc in the face, takes him and knocks him out, takes him down. Then the little fast guy can run past him. Great, sounds fantastic. So then you kind of do like a little check, and then the orc guy just kind of laughs in your offensive lineman's face, knocks him on his ass, and then your turn's over. And so that I really like that dynamic in game. I can't really remember how long the games take, but that's a positive thing, because I've never really been sitting looking at my watch or sucking my gums thinking this is taking a long time. Some of them have been fast, some of them have been less fast. Some of them do get a little frustrating at times, especially if you're playing against teams that dominate you physically. Because I tended to play humans, because the people that I was playing against preferred to play orcs, because I only have those two teams out of the starter set. So the orcs are stronger. So I get a lot of guys in the kind of the medical bay, because there's like a little medical bay at the side as they get knocked out or injured and wheeled off the field. But it's just a good game. It's just a really good game. Because you mentioned you're going to start playing it more as you kind of get towards winter. Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be inside playing games at the moment when we're getting our 1 week of summer. So, but yeah, looking ahead to winter. But we should try on a Tabletop Simulator. Cause,
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. That'd be really good. There's actually a video game. I'm not sure if you've got like a handheld gaming system. I think it's probably consoles or anything like that, but you can actually get Blood Bowl like a video game, and it's pretty good. I think it's on the 3rd edition now, Blood Bowl 3, I think I've got Blood Bowl 2. But that's a pretty much a fair representation of the actual board game as well, and it's pretty good. But what about other gaming stuff? Since we last spoke, have you played anything else?
Yeah, so funnily enough, I think it was like the day or a couple of days after you had Callum, aka Dr. Spock, on the show. He'd come over and we'd been playing my solo rule set, my solo co-op rule set, which I'm pretty happy with. So we got a game of that. Really enjoyed that, and I've been getting a decent amount of painting done as well. After I finished the Blood Bowl team, I got back to some of my 15mm. I'm painting up a Chaos army for Hobgoblin, so working on that. And then I've got a couple of wee palette cleansers on the go at the moment, just a couple of little Chaos guys, a little Thug and Chaos Warrior. And then I'm going to do some Burrows and Badgers, so nice. Anthropomorphic animals like rabbits and hares. So those are always really nice miniatures to paint. What about yourself?
Mate, you know I've been painting. You can probably read my mind. You know what I've been painting. You know what I've been painting.
A Song of Ice and Fire.
You talk about your missus and gaming recently. Like I play games with my wife, and she started to really enjoy the games that we play. She's not full tabletop. I wouldn't play like rank and flank games or anything that's mass battle. I probably wouldn't play skirmish games other than things that I know she would like we played Frostgrave. But has your wife ever shown any interest? Or do you want to keep? Some people want to keep it separate. Like, that's my hobby. I go and do that. You go and do this, and I go and do that. Like, would you want her to play games? Have you asked her? Have you ever tried?
Yeah, we've played stuff in the past, and I think she'll humour me with Blood Bowl. But I am always got like she will play a game, but I might be overthinking it, but I'm always like at the back of my mind, I'm like, she's just humouring you here. I can't fully like let go of that.
On your wedding day, eh?
Yeah, totally. And every night ever since. But one thing that has been going on recently, I've got this old like Pathfinder like dungeon mat thing. It's like a cardboard little tunnels and dungeon rooms and stuff. So my wee girl, she'll be 4 at the end of this month.
Nice.
And she's always kind of taking an interest in the miniatures that I've got kicking about and the fact that I'm painting. So I've started to let her play with this little mat, and I've got the miniatures from Dungeon Saga, the Mantic miniatures.
Yeah.
So they're decent enough and they're all painted, but I'm not overly worried about them. Like, they're not like a lot of my metal ones that I've spent a lot more time on or spent more money on. But she's very careful with them anyway. So what she likes to do is we've got all the dungeon scenery. It's like bookcases and tables and that. So she likes to just set up the dungeon with all the furniture, and then she likes to put everyone in different rooms and just see what they're doing and stuff. So
yeah.
I just sit and watch her, and sometimes I've went away and done something and trusted her not to break anything, and touch wood she hasn't. So it's cool that she's taking a wee interest there. We'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, my daughter's super into games too. Like I'm at the point now she's 8, and I've started to encourage her to read rule sets and be like, she's like, can we play this? I'm like, yeah. Okay, so you have a quick look at it. Have a quick look at the rule book. Try and set it up as best you can, and then if you hit a dead end, give me a shout. Whereas I started when my daughter was 4, so it's like a 4-year fucking program, mate, indoctrination. Whereas like we would do the same thing. I'd set up some minis and I'd set up an area, and it'd be like, okay, what do you want this guy to do? And she's like, I want this guy to run over there. And it's like, okay, how do we figure out how fast he can go? She's like, oh, he just goes, and then that's how it started. Like, okay, but then it started like to be like, okay, well, is this guy faster than that guy or slower? And so she was starting to like create those rules herself in her head, and we started using dice. It's like, I want this guy to save the princess. It's like, okay, well, how do we decide if the princess is saved or not? And that's when we started, a few times we do like rock, paper, scissors. So it's like, I'm the bad guy and I've stolen the princess, like he kidnapped the princess, and this other princess is trying to save her or whatever. And it's like, okay, so rock, paper, scissors. We rock, paper, scissors, you save her, all that kind of stuff. And so it's really fun seeing how she's starting to create rules to see what happens within games, if that kind of makes sense, without the actual rule set, because it's got to be fun. And as you kind of speak to a lot of rule designers kind of say similar things, where it's like, don't really have a set design mentality or ethos. It's just kind of like, I think about what the intent of the game is, and I'll just find something that is fit for purpose in terms of like, this is how I want it to feel. So this is the dynamic, this is the mechanic, this is the thing that I'll use to kind of make that. So hopefully your daughter starts to enjoy playing games. And like, that's what I found my daughter is, that like, if she doesn't enjoy it, we just don't play it. Yeah. Like if the game becomes a slog, just put it away. Because what's the point? The whole point is that it should be joyful, it should be creative, it should be interesting. So we played Burgle Bros a few days ago. And so the general gist of that game is that you're trying to crack safes to get loot on 3 different floors of a building. So the aim of the game is to crack the safe on each floor, got 3 floors, and then get to the roof and kind of escape on the roof. And so we set it up, and then there's a few rules that she either wasn't getting or just didn't like. So we just house ruled it. It was like, what do you think we should do with this? Like, and that the fact that we weren't playing the exact game doesn't matter. Like, we had some fun. And then what we actually did at the end of it is that we played a couple of games, and then I just sent her a video off YouTube of how to play it properly. And then we discussed, discussed, it sounds like proper formal, sat down, had a little test. But then I was like, I watched the video, and then she watched the video at a different time. And I was like, did we play it right? And she's like, yeah, we played it pretty much right. And I was like, what was different? And she was able to tell me what a couple of things that we didn't do right. And I was like, well, what are we going to do next time? Were we going to play how we played it, or do you think might change it? And so there's just that discourse of just trying to have some fun, using the game as a framework, but going out of that framework whenever it was appropriate, sticking with the framework. It was just pretty cool. So hopefully, man, your daughter continues to enjoy it, but keeping the joy and keeping the creativity is something that's really important.
I was laughing there when you were saying, like, let her set it up and shout you if she needs help. Like, it's the opposite here. Like, I'll set it up and shout my daughter if I need help. I'm just not in this, this rule in page 260 of the 40k rule book. So.
Yeah, man. But I think there's a lot to be said. For just making your own relationship. I think it kind of ties up the conversation that we're having. I know we're limited on time, but that's one thing that I would encourage anyone. Not that we're like sages of the hobby or anything like that, you know what I mean? But it's just like there's no right or wrong, really. There's no right thing to make minis out of. There's no right company. There's no right price. There's no right rules. There's no right games. It's just, if you're having fun with it and you enjoy that sort of thing, it's amazing. Just do that. The fact that anyone's spending any time within this hobby, that's what makes it pretty cool, right?
So I suppose as we get wrapped up, like, what's coming down the tubes at Paint All the Minis Towers? You've got a big milestone episode coming up, haven't you?
Yeah, 250, mate. So in a couple of weeks, episode 250 is coming out, which is pretty cool.
That's a lot of episodes. It
is, mate, isn't it? Yeah. I going back to earlier, what I said earlier in the show is that I'd never think too much about it. So yeah, 250 is good or whatever, but it's not some sort of it's just a number in it, really, But it's nice to think back. There's like this 200. There's more than that, because there's a few unofficial episodes that I've done. But to have met that many people, and the vast majority of those people I still talk to on a regular basis is really nice. It's just nice to have had that many conversations with people, just to have met that many people. Because a lot of people, as I think about this, there's not 250 separate people. There's people that have been on 2 or 3 times, but it's just nice to have had that amount of conversations with different people within the hobby, man. It's pretty cool.
So what are you doing for 250? Are you going to record it naked, seeing as it's just an audio show anyway?
Yeah,
I'm going to record it clothes for once.
No, yeah, I'm going to put some clothes on. No, well, what I just getting people to try and contribute. So what would be amazing is that I kind of put a few questions together about that, questions that link us together. So what do we enjoy about the hobby? Is there any particular episodes that we've listened to in the past that we liked? And how did we encounter Paint All the Minis? There's 3 questions, and I'm encouraging people to kind of record an answer to some or all of those, just so you can be part of it, if that kind of makes sense. Because there's a lot of people that listen on a regular basis. There's, people that reach out and speak to me about episodes that they liked and stuff like that. But just to be able to give people an opportunity to hear themselves on a show, that's what we want to do for the 250th one, really. Because before I started this, I would listen to certain shows or listen to podcasts, and just, you kind of think that it's very technical, or it's beyond you, or, it takes, all this stuff. So just giving people the opportunity just to hear themselves on a show, and I'll do all the heavy lifting, I'll do all the hard work in the background. All you need to do is literally record your voice and send it to me, and I'll put it on the podcast. I think that's pretty nice. And it's not going to appeal to everybody, but just if someone gets the opportunity just to come on a show, that's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, well, congrats on getting to such a high number. That was also with a big hiatus, wasn't it? So it's that's a backhanded way of saying it could have been more. Think
I know, mate. You're always sticking the boot in, mate. You always people think it's the other way around. People think that I'm always taking a mickey out of you, but my taking a mickey is quite good natured and tongue in cheek, whereas yours is quite scathing, like a stiletto knife in my back in the kidneys.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it was with the hiatus, with just getting a little bit jaded about certain things, and the internet being terrible, and obviously having a young family and things like that. It was kind of like, just, again, going back to what we said about my daughter playing a game. It's just like, if it's not fun, if you're not having fun, don't do it. You don't have to keep on doing all this stuff if you're just not really feeling at that moment in time. I think it's much better, because when stuff is under pressure and when you force things, that's when things tend to break. So it's been really nice kind of coming back to it and kind of getting a decent run. I forget how many individual shows I've done in this latest run, but it's probably over 20 at this moment in time. Probably over 20 at this moment in time. So it's just nice. I mean, just good.
Magic.
What about your show? Just as we round up, what's coming up with yours?
So I mentioned to you that I'm going to be republishing some older episodes. So the show is 4 years old now. So that means that a lot of new listeners have joined over that time, and not everyone goes back and listens to the back catalogue, although some do. And also, I think there's a few conversations from back in those heady days of 2021 and 22 that, even if you did hear them at the time, and, I literally recorded them, listening back to some of them, it's like, hearing a new episode, there's a lot of value still in there. So once a month I'm going to do, I'm calling it a re-roll. So there's going to be a re-roll once a month, and we're just going to, what was the metaphor you used? Like just making sausages, basically. Sweeping the floor and making sausages. Haggis.
This steak's a week old. What can we do with it? Yeah. Chop it up. Put it.
Someday I'll buy it. I'll deep fry it.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. 4 years is a long old time, eh?
Yeah. I mean, it's as old as my daughter, so I could see a physical manifestation of the podcast in her.
Yeah, man, that's cool. Do you have set goals and set ideas with your show? Do you ever talk about this on your show, about what it is you want to achieve and what it is you want to do? And do you feel like you're achieving those things?
Because it's just creative enjoyment or fulfillment. It's just enjoyment. That's all it is. So no goals or that. Like I do have the Patreon, and if I could pick up a bit of beer tokens or hobby money that way, then great. But I try not to ram it down anyone's throat. And yeah, it's just really about enjoying and having the conversations and community that is kind of led from it. So that's all.
Nice. I posted that video. I'll put it on my Discord, on the Paint on Minis Discord, and maybe you put it on yours. But a video that I sent you just before about the grindification of hobbies, and this person's putting forward that hobbies aren't as fun anymore as what they could have been, because we're always trying to kind of like put it into a work setting where we're always trying to be getting it better or bigger or grow it or develop it or set ourselves targets and all that kind of stuff. And I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on that. And it seems to be like you've got a really good handle on what it is that you do creatively. I try and do that myself, whereas like just it exists because it does, and I just want it to be a good outlet for me as an individual. And you're kind of the same. I'd be interested to know what you think of that video and what other people might think of it too.
Yeah, I'll give that a wee look this afternoon. Yeah.
Cool.
Alrighty then. Thanks as always, Dan. We'll catch up again soon and talk about this other topic that we didn't get to, but it'll be worth covering at some point, I think.
For sure. Well, thanks for that, mate. So it's nice to talk to you. Always nice to talk to you, and it's been a long time, mate.
Yeah, I enjoy that Italian sunshine. Massive thanks to Dan there for the chat. It's always a real pleasure to have him on the show. And if you're unaware of Dan's own podcast as well, Paint All the Minis, go and check that out, please. 250 odd episodes now, just sitting there waiting on you to binge at the painting table. So yeah, Paint All the Minis, one of the classic hobby podcasts. A lot more classicer than this one, I would say. I'm buttering Dan up because I think he feels I'm quite harsh on him sometimes, and rightly so. We did have a longer chat. Actually, I'm going to fire back onto a bit of bonus content now. I'd mentioned there the Italian sunshine. You know, Dan being a billionaire playboy of the hobby, he just tends to hop around different countries, and we were speaking to him from his mansion in Italy. So I was kind of wanting to pick his brains about, you know, when you're as rich as Dan is, and when you have so many different houses in so many different countries, how does the hobby work there? You know, what do you take from place to place? Do you just buy entirely new hobby setups for each of your mansions? So yeah, let's get a peek under the curtain at how the other half live. And here's Dan talking about his hobby life in Italy.
This time we brought a bunch of games with us. So we probably bought half a suitcase of games. So we bought like one big chunky game that we can play at night time when the kids are asleep. And then we've got a couple of smaller games. Well, no more than a couple. We've got a few games that we kind of play when the kids are in the sea. So we're sitting on the beach and playing a game, or we go out to a restaurant and have a drink either before or after our meal. So we've got like smaller card-based games. So the Grizzled, Hero Realms, and Burgle Bros, and another game which I forget. So yeah, so when we've got our place established, I'll slowly bring a certain amount of the game stash that I have over here. So I've got like, not necessarily a 50-50 split, but I've got a decent amount of games here that'll stay here. And then I'll have some games that'll stay in our other place. And then eventually when we move over here full time, I'll move the rest of them over. In terms of hobby stuff, I'm going to either transfer some paints at Christmas time from China to here, or I'll get like a very basic painting set, and I'll just bring some minis across, because it's really good use of your time, like doing hobby stuff when you're on holiday, especially because on the holiday it takes, you know, any holiday you're on, the danger is that you just absolutely hemorrhage money like over hand over fist for nothing. You'll know this because you're always on holiday, eh? But like, you know, if you're not careful, you just blatting money like on nothing all the time, like an ice cream here, a couple of beers there, you know, mini golf, crazy golf here. And so hobbying and painting and stuff like that, you do, even if you just do it for an afternoon, it's free. You've already got the stuff. And so especially if there's nice weather, you can sit on the balcony or sit outside. So yeah, that aim is to kind of get like a temporary hobby set up, bring certain parts with me over a number of different trips and kind of build stuff up. But I definitely won't have like go ahead.
I was just going to say, so painting is still very much on your agenda then. I mean, you've talked a lot about gaming there, and obviously board games, there's potential to, like, you know, a lot of them are very small now, and you seem to be well covered there. But yeah, what about the painting front?
I think it's just, I like doing it because it's relaxing. So I definitely want to be painting. I've not done it this time, but I definitely will get some sort of hobby station set up, because it's just, like I said, it's free pretty much once you've got your stuff, or it gets a lot more better value if you constantly use it. And it's just like a nice little afternoon, you know, even if you're just you on your own, other people go out and do stuff, you can cut about. But yeah, I definitely get a hobby painting set up, and with maybe bring some games across that have minis in them. So I've got a couple of games earmarked for bringing across at Christmas. Shadows of Brimstone is one. And there's another game that I picked up a while ago called The Fear of Small Places. What's that word? Fear of small claustrophobia. Claustrophobia. It's like Claustrophobia, like 1643 or something. There's an original game called Claustrophobia, and then they brought out like a special version of it. It's like Claustrophobia 1643 or something like that. I'll probably bring those across, and then I can paint them and then also play the game at the same time. Not the same time, but you know what I mean, in the same kind of effort, as opposed to bringing, I don't think I'll bring tabletop games across for a while, because you need more stuff, like, you know, more separate stuff. Whereas if you bring like a self-contained box over, everything's within that box, so it's easily packed up and stuff like that. But yeah, looking forward to it. It's good because when you're on holiday, you got more leisure time too, right? So it's just, yeah, it's good.
When you think about all the paints that you've accumulated over the years, presumably you've got quite a lot of paints at your disposal. And then if you're thinking about taking a small selection of those, I guess it would almost be quite a good exercise to limit yourself to paints and then see how creative you then have to get when you're used to a wider palette, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we've all got our workhorses, haven't we? I think we've all got our kind of usual paints that we kind of go to for our leather, our wood, and different things like that. So yeah, I'll just kind of either bring some across, or I'll buy certain paints that I know just I know, you get to know them. It's like an extension of yourself, and it's like, oh, that's my favorite wood color, that's my favorite buckle color, that's my favorite armor color. So I'll purposely keep it very simple. The more technical stuff I'll keep in my main place, and then I'll get like a travel set that'll stay here, and I'll bring minis which are appropriate for those colors and things like that. But yeah, keep it really, because you don't need a lot. That's the thing as well, is that you see like paint ranges with like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of colors, and it's like you don't really actually need that many, especially if you understand the color wheel. Get on the color wheel, and you're kind of good to go, really. With about 7 different colors, you can probably mix and match and all that kind of stuff. Do you mix your own colors, or do you stick to what comes straight out of the bottle?
I try not to mix colours. I mean, I'll lighten or darken a colour, but I try not to mix them. I've spoken about that in the past. Like I'm quite badly colourblind. I wouldn't trust myself to mix up anything too complicated, because it might be like, oh, what a nice green I've got here, and it's actually pink or something. So,
but I don't. I'm the same as you, but not because I'm colourblind. It's because I forget the recipe.
Yeah.
So it's like if I'm painting like a big unit or something, I'll put together like a really nice turquoise or whatever, and then it's like comes to paint them again like a few months later, and I'm like, hey, I ain't got any idea about how to do it again. So I don't do it out of forgetfulness, really, more than anything. But yeah, you can make do with hardly any colours, really. It's only kind of just like farting around collecting stuff that I've got so many.
My first ever paint set, when I would have been like, I don't know, 10 maybe, and it was the Games Workshop. It was a little red box, and I can't remember how many paints. It was a starter set, so you could either get it with the standard like little plastic monopose Space Marine, or you could get the fantasy version with the Chaos Warrior. And I think it was like, I want to say 5 paints. So I think you had a white, a black, a red. You didn't have a blue or that. A green, you had a green. So it might have just been 4, or possibly Snakebite Leather was in there. So say 4 or 5, but you crucially, I know that the 2 miniatures you didn't require it, but you crucially didn't have like a skin colour. There was no blue in there. So like I remember like all sorts of ways that I ended up trying to get skin colour, like, just mixing up a kind of chalky black and white mixture, or like, I tried all sorts to get a skin colour. I never even remotely got close to, a typical skin colour or an acceptable looking skin colour. It was always just a bit weird. But it was just childlike experiment, I suppose, or complete lack of budget, maybe.
Yeah, it's that law that keeps on getting grappled with in America, isn't it? The right to repair. I think sales people that want to sell us paint don't want us to remember the color wheel and what colors need to be mixed to make others, because I don't think anyone needs over 100 paints, for example. You've got red, yellow, and blue as your main 3, and out of those 3 primary colors, you can make a whole bunch of others. Which is it's fairly easy. But if you just need to remember it, like I remember it because I have it on my wall on my hobby desk. And it kind of helps to mix up different colors and helps you to understand like the basics. But yeah, skin color would be something that I didn't even know how you'd get that from primary colors. I don't know how you get it.
Nah, still trying to figure it out. 30 years later, just sitting here every day, scratching my head. Still got that little starter set. That's all I've got. Still painting that same Space Marine. Thanks very much for listening to this episode of the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. If you enjoy the show, then please do share it with someone else you think might enjoy it too. And be sure to check out our Discord community of like-minded hobbyists, which you could find at bedroombattlefields.com/Discord. It'd be great to see you in there.